The night is almost quiet until you listen closely. Then you hear it, the distant rumble of artillery, a low, constant growl rolling across the steppe. It's 1943 on the Eastern Front. A sliver of moon hangs over the dark countryside. On the ground, German soldiers smoke, curse the cold, and try to convince themselves they'll survive until morning. Somewhere in the black sky above them, something small and slow is approaching. At first, there's the faint buzz of an engine. Then it cuts out. Silence. The men glance up uneasily. Out of the darkness comes only a soft, eerie sound, like a broomstick sweeping the air. Seconds later, bombs begin to fall. To the Germans below, they are Nachthexen, night witches. To themselves, they're just young Soviet women in threadbare uniforms, flying obsolete wooden biplanes that were never meant to be war machines. Two realities at once, the terrifying legend and the fragile truth. It's that contrast that makes their story so unforgettable. Because on paper, nothing about them should have worked. Their planes were slow and unarmored. Their training was rushed. Their own country didn't really believe women belonged in combat. And yet, sortie after sortie, night after night, they clawed their way through fear and flak to become one of the most effective and feared air units of the Second World War. To understand how a group of young women ended up bombing German positions at treetop height in glorified crop dusters, you have to rewind to the desperation of 1941. Operation Barbarossa has just torn open the Soviet Union. Cities are falling, whole armies are encircled. The Red Air Force has been mauled on the ground and in the air. In that chaos, thousands of Soviet women, many already trained as civilian pilots or mechanics, turn up to recruitment offices begging to fight. Most are turned away. The official line is clear. Women can be nurses, typists, maybe ferry pilots. Combat is for men. One woman refuses to accept that. Marina Raskova, already a celebrity aviator, the Russian Amelia Earhart, leverages her fame and connections to lobby Stalin directly. She argues that women are eager, trained, and desperately underused talent. With casualties mounting, the regime is pragmatic enough to listen. In late 1941, Stalin signs an order that changes history, the creation of 3 all-female air regiments. One will fly fighters, another dive bombers. The third, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, will specialize in nocturnal harassment raids along the front. They will become the Night Witches. The volunteers who arrive at Raskova's new training center are mostly teenagers and 20-somethings, students, factory workers, parachutists, glider pilots. Some have already logged serious flying hours. Others have never touched an aircraft but will learn or die trying. Officially, they go through the same syllabus as male pilots. In reality, the timeline is brutally compressed. What used to take years is crammed into a few frantic months. They study navigation by candlelight, struggle with maps, memorize aircraft diagrams, and then stumble into freezing cockpits at dawn to fly training circuits. The contrast between their idealism and their conditions is almost darkly comic. Their uniforms are hand-me-downs from male units, boots 3 sizes too big, jackets that hang like tents, trousers cinched with string or rope. They stuff rags into their shoes, roll up sleeves, and joke bitterly that they look more like scarecrows than aviators. They cut their long hair to keep it from freezing to their collars. Many face open contempt from male officers and instructors who assume they'll wash out. But the front is hungry for pilots, and these women are too stubborn to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing them quit. When the 588th finally receives its aircraft, more than a few of the women think it's a bad joke. The Polikarpov PO-2 is a relic even by 1940 standards, a 2-seat biplane with a wooden frame and canvas skin, originally designed in the late 1920s as a trainer and crop duster. Top speed, around 150 kilometers per hour, if the wind is kind. No armor, no radio, no retractable landing gear. By day, it looks like something out of an aviation museum's early flight corner. At night, armed with 2 or 3 small bombs under its wings, it becomes the most unlikely combat aircraft on the front. Yet the very weaknesses of the PO-2 become the Night Witch's best weapons. The biplane's low stall speed allows it to fly dangerously low, hugging the contours of the ground. Its wooden construction doesn't show up well on primitive German radar. Its engine, a simple 5-cylinder radial, can be throttled back to almost nothing. On a bombing run, pilot and navigator approach their target with the engine roaring, then, at the last moment, cut the throttle. The aircraft glides silently over the German positions, dropping its bombs before restarting the engine and clawing desperately back into the dark. To soldiers below, that brief, ghostly rustle of air just before the blast sounds like the swish of broomsticks. Night witches. Inside the cockpit, though, there's nothing supernatural. Just 2 exhausted women, wrapped in layers of wool and leather, fighting fatigue and the elements. The pilot sits in front, hands numb on the simple control stick, feet on pedals linked by cables to the rudder. Behind her, the navigator leans over a map clipped to a board, a faint red-lensed flashlight between her teeth, trying to match rivers and roads to the faint shapes below. There are no sophisticated instruments to rely on. A compass, an altimeter, an airspeed indicator, maybe a simple turn and bank gauge. And outside, only darkness streaked with searchlights and tracer fire. Their missions are not the glamorous precision strikes you see in war films. They're harassment raids, small, repeated attacks meant to deny the enemy sleep and push their nerves to the breaking point. A typical night might see a crew fly 8, 10, even 15 sorties, hopscotching from one target to another, a supply dump here, an ammunition train there, a line of trenches, a crossing point. Each run means taking off from a rough forward airstrip, sometimes just a flattened field, hauling their flimsy plane into the air loaded to its maximum with fuel and bombs, and then plunging into a sky that might kill them with weather alone. In winter, the cold is a living thing. Open cockpits mean wind shrieks straight into their faces at well below freezing. Oil congeals, exposed skin can freeze in minutes. Frostbite is common. They pack newspapers inside their clothes as extra insulation and smear grease on their cheeks and noses. Navigators sometimes climb out slightly in flight, harnessed but half exposed, to check for landmarks or to kick loose bombs that have jammed in their racks. In summer, it's the opposite problem. Swarms of insects, sudden thunderstorms, low cloud that blinds them completely as they hunt for any glimpse of the ground. The Germans learn fast that these noisy little biplanes, which seem so contemptible at first, are anything but harmless. They harass frontline positions, they blow up fuel depots, they hit crossings at exactly the wrong time, forcing reinforcements to scatter. No matter how often you shoot at them, they keep coming back, hour after hour, night after night. Imagine trying to sleep under that, the constant fear that a few dozen kilos of explosives are about to drop through your roof. Enemy commanders complain that their men are exhausted, jumpy, worn down. You can fire flak into the sky, but the witches slip through. Stories grow. The Germans give them their nickname and attach a bounty to shooting them down. Rumor says 2,000 Reichmarks and an Iron Cross, though figures vary. Some insist the women use experimental drugs, that they have feline night vision, or that they're recruited from prisons or mental asylums because no sane person would fly such missions. Myths multiply because the reality is too simple to accept. They're just determined young women in fragile machines, exploiting every weakness the battlefield offers. The 588 flies its first combat missions in June 1942 in the southern sector near the Don. By then, the war has chewed up whole armies. The regiment settles into a grinding routine that will last until 1945. They move with the front, from the Caucasus, helping to blunt the German drive towards oil fields, to the Kuban, through Crimea, into Belarus, Poland, and finally over the Oder into Germany itself. Their base airfields are often no more than muddy strips hacked out of farmland, with tents or dugouts instead of hangars.
Mechanics work in the open, in snow and rain, coaxing shot-up PO2s back into service with fabric patches, scavenged parts, and sheer ingenuity. Leadership in this improbable unit matters. At its head is Yevdokia Bershanskaya, the regimental commander. She's tough, organized, and knows how to balance Stalinist demands for results with the reality of keeping her women alive. Beside her, political officers like Yevdokia Rachkevich handle morale, ideology, and the endless flow of paperwork that any Soviet unit generates, even under fire. Many of the pilots and navigators rise through the ranks based on performance. Merit, more than age or class, decides who leads each three-plane flight on a given night. Inside each crew, relationships are intense. Pilot and navigator depend on one another absolutely. If the pilot misjudges height or angle, they might plow straight into a forest or hillside.